Hello everyone, you're watching Campus Channel and we're here today with Neoma Business School to talk about the Master of Science in Marketing French Excellence. The head of the program, Ewan, is here to take your questions, but before we do that, we're going to start with the pitch. All right, Ewan, you have 60 seconds flat. Are you ready?
Jake, thanks so much.
All right, go.
Well, I'm delighted to be here, and probably the question that most people are asking at home is, what on earth is marketing French excellence? So I'll try and explain it as quickly as I can. The idea is very simply to say that in most business schools around the world, you can go and do a fabulous degree in marketing, master's degree in marketing, because that's what this is. But most business schools in the world will take the Anglo-Saxon approach. So case studies will talk about Coke or about Nike or about Starbucks. Business examples will come from American companies, European companies. But here in Marketing French Excellence, we take our examples from France. I'm not a Frenchman, as my accent might suggest, but I've lived in France for a very long time. And I realized quite quickly on coming here, originally I came to work in the world of fashion, but I realized quite quickly that in fact France has many things to teach the rest of the world about marketing. So the program is divided into a series of modules, and each of the modules focuses on some aspect of what France excels at. Luxury.
All right, that's time. Maybe we'll get an opportunity to talk about it a little bit more. We're going to move on to the face-to-face, so please remember to keep sending us your questions. They're going to show up right there. So let's take the first one. Ewan, will you read this, please?
Well,
this lets you expand on your...
The first question is actually the question that comes before the answer that I ran out of time. So I don't understand why this reference is French excellence. Are we only focusing on marketing French businesses and products? Not at all. As I was in the middle of explaining, the idea is to take French examples. The idea is of excellent French companies, French brands, French services, French products, and to use those to illustrate the general theory of marketing. Because this is a program which aims to make people experts in marketing, but in a general sense, so that they can apply to any company, anywhere in the world, in any one of the departments that typically a company has in the world of marketing.
And what is the general attraction for students to this program? Why do people say, I want to go learn how the French do marketing?
That's a great question. First of all, a large majority of our students are international students, literally from all over the world. We have some French students as well. And for those students, it's fascinating to come and live and study in France for a year or more, because there's an internship at the end of the program. But for most of the people who have never been here, or who have only been here perhaps on holiday, it's a great insight to see how French companies operate. Operating in France, but also operating in other parts of the world. If I take, for instance, the example of the luxury industry, it's expanding extraordinarily fast around the world. China, for instance, has the fastest growing market at the moment for luxury brands, luxury companies. And this is an area, of course, in which France excels. So we have quite a number of Chinese students who come to study with us because they want to learn how to do luxury marketing. Possibly to work for a French company, but also possibly to work for a Chinese company, which is itself developing or expanding into the luxury area.
So for students who will be working at an international company outside of France, not for a French company, how realistic is it to think that they will be able to apply French marketing strategies and techniques in a company whenever they're probably going to start at entry level or mid-level where they're not able to institute real change?
Well, I would stress that there is no such thing as a French approach to marketing. It's the general approach to marketing applied in the context of French brands and French products and French companies. If I give you some examples of recent alumni, one of my recent graduates went off to Spain to work for, I won't give the name of the company perhaps, but went off to work for a very well-known fast food company selling chicken. I think you can probably guess who it is. I have Chinese students working in Scandinavia, in Finland and in Sweden, working for some of the best-known French companies there, but I also have Chinese students working in China. So there's as I say, there's a very wide range of opportunities at the end of the program. There are literally no limits to the jobs that are available.
All right, let's take this next question here.
So why is this program based in Rouen, not a bigger city centre like Paris, where many major companies have their headquarters? Well, there are several answers to that question. The first is historical. The program is about to move into its 9th year. That's quite an achievement. A program that's lasted for 9 years, in theory, is a good program. It's a program which is succeeding. I would mention that in the French ranking system, which is run by an organization called SMBG, this program is now number 8 out of all the programs that are available. There are many programs, and it's rising each year. So it takes a while to establish itself. And quite simply, in the origins of the program was started by a school that was called Rouen Business School, which is where I used to work. In fact, I still work for Rouen Business School because Neoma Business School was the merger of Rouen Business School and Reims Management School. And these two schools merged together 3 years ago to make us the school we are today, which is one of the largest schools in France. So historically, the program was in Rouen, and the program has stayed in Rouen. We also have a campus in Paris now, and in that campus in Paris, we run our MBA programs, we run our executive education programs, but the program French Excellence has stayed where it was originally started. What I would say as well is that Rouen is a great place to study for anyone coming particularly from outside of France. It's only an hour from Paris by train. Rouen is an affordable city. Paris is an expensive city, let's be honest. Maybe you live in Paris yourself. I used to live in Paris. It's a very expensive place to live, particularly as a student. So Rouen has the best of both worlds. It has a large student community. It's only an hour from Paris, so it's easy to come at weekends or even to come for an evening. It has the attraction of being a very historical and very beautiful old city.
Excellent sell for Rouen. Let's take this next question here.
Does this course include any analytics learning, such as for Google? Well, the good news is that we're actually introducing a new module, which is run by my partner manager, because the program is now co-run, because it's got larger and more successful. One of my colleagues has come to join me. He's an American, in fact, who's been at the school for a couple of years, and he wanted, when he arrived, to introduce a new module, which is going to be called Millennial Marketing, and that's going to focus on new trends in all aspects of marketing, including a little bit on the area of analytics. It's only a 30-hour module, so we don't go deeply into it, and somebody who is particularly interested in data analytics is probably better doing a full program in that. We in fact have one ourselves in Paris on a part-time basis, but yes, we are looking at it in overview.
So what other ways has the program changed? You've introduced this new millennial marketing module. How else do you envision changing the program in the future, or how has it changed majorly in the past few years to adapt to the current trends?
Well, it's grown incrementally or developed incrementally as time has gone by. We have modified some of the content inside. Of course, we're continuing modifying things like case studies, bringing in newer case studies which are more up to date. An example would be, let's take an example of somebody who's in the news all the time, Uber, the Uber taxi company, who are in the news constantly, sometimes for good reasons and sometimes for bad reasons at the moment. So case studies like that need to be brought in because the world is changing so quickly. Before the cameras came on, we were talking about the use of mobile phones, we're talking about the use of pads and computers, both in the classroom and out of the classroom. It's very important that we adapt ourselves to new ways of learning as well.
All right, let's take this next question here.
Do we have the opportunity to specialize in any specific field of marketing, such as digital, or a specific industry like luxury and retail? Well, the answer, quite simply, is no. And for those of you who have studied the program online, you will see that it's divided into modules. It's a modular program. Each of the modules is 30 hours. And our objective, very clearly and very definitely, is to allow all of you who are watching this to be able to do a little bit of everything so that you can apply to companies in any domain that takes your fancy. Now, we do that quite simply and quite specifically because more and more of the companies that we are meeting, and we have a lot of contact with the professional world, are telling us that they would rather employ, in general, generalists. They'd rather take people who've studied marketing in a general sense, and then they will train them themselves and they will give them the specificities they need. There is still a very valid place in the market for very specific programs, which we offer ourselves in our Paris campus, but those are for people who are absolutely sure that they want to go into product management or into data analytics or into communications. This program, Marketing French Excellence, is designed to open as many doors as possible at the end of it. So no, we don't specifically specialize in one area during the program.
Do you tend to have a lot of students who come in knowing exactly what industry they want to work in?
Very few.
Okay.
If I'm honest, very few. I also teach in our bachelor's programs at the senior level in 3rd and 4th year. And my experience is that even 3rd and even 4th year bachelor students, many of them are still unsure about what they want to do. Having said that, anyone who is going to do marketing French excellence knows they want to be a marketer. And I would certainly not suggest that somebody should do marketing French excellence and then change their mind and go and do finance or human resources. This is for people who know that, like me, they're passionate about the world of marketing, because I've been doing marketing for a very long time and I'm still passionate about it, but they haven't decided yet exactly where they want to do their marketing and in what area they want to do it. So it's specifically marketing, but marketing in a general sense.
Excellent. All right, let's take this question.
Are there any practical real-world cases that we can get to work on? Wow, I've never been asked that question before. Yes, what you need to do is you need to go shopping. Now that sounds really stupid, but this is the advice that I give. Yeah, honestly.
Are you going to give them an allowance?
No, they have to use their own money now.
Okay.
I'm from Scotland. We don't have money in Scotland, you know. And if we have any, we don't spend it. Seriously though, when you go shopping, and everyone has to go shopping, even if it's only to buy food, what you need to do is you have to open your eyes, you have to open your ears, and if you're really brave, you can even talk to people in shops. You can talk to people at the cash desk, and you can talk to customers around you doing their shopping. And you will do more informal market research in one trip to the shops than you would do in any number of formal studies that cost a lot of money. Because people love to talk, and if you train yourself to observe, and you need to look at prices on shelves, you need to look at prices per quantity, you need to look at promotional activity, you need to sit in front of the television and watch the advertisements and try and make the link between what Coca-Cola or L'Oreal or anybody else is trying to tell you on television or in a magazine, and what you see when you go to a shop or you go to a boutique, and what you hear real customers talking about in real time. Because if you don't see a link, then somehow perhaps the advertising is not working. If you hear customers struggling to understand what you see in the stores, then again, maybe there's some problem with the positioning of the brand, the positioning of the products, the pricing strategy. So that the first thing I would recommend to anyone before they come to us to study is go out and inform yourself of what happens in the real world. And it's nice going to the shops.
The case study is the real world, the world around you.
The best case study of all is all around us.
All right, we're going to take a quick break from questions because it's time for 3 words max. Our guest has 3 words to describe his program, and he gets 1 phrase to explain why he chose each word. All right, so let's hear word number 1.
Well, the first word has to be passion. It's the passion for marketing. It's the passion for learning, because quite honestly, if you're not passionate about learning, you shouldn't be coming to study at Neoma Business School, because you're coming here to learn things that will lead you into my second word, which is professionalism. Because the world of business is a tough world. It's a world which doesn't take prisoners. By that I mean that the world of business, the business career is highly competitive. You're competing against colleagues as well as competing against competitors in the marketplace. So you need to be passionate about learning. You need to be passionate about becoming professional. And my third word, and it might sound like a very strange word, would be philosophy, because to me, actually, there's a bit of philosophy and maybe a bit of psychology. I'm cheating having 4 words.
All right.
But there's a bit of philosophy and psychology in marketing, because we have to understand how people think. We have to understand what motivates them, makes them tick, turns them on, turns them off. But we also have to think morally, and we have to think ethically about what we're doing in the world of marketing. One of the things I teach in my courses is a course on marketing ethics, because marketing, if it's used wrongly, can do a great deal of harm, particularly to the young, to the old, to people who are not able to protect themselves, defend themselves from the big tough world of marketing. So there. That's
well done.
3.5 things.
3.5 things.
Okay.
Well done.
Squeeze
Let's
it.
get back to the questions here. I'll let you take this one.
Do we get to participate in student associations? Yes, please. I'll come back to that. Any particularly interesting ones you can tell us about? So at Neoma Business School, we have many, many associations, and they run the whole gamut, from sport to art to culture to political debate, you name it. There are associations who go off and they drive old Renault cars to the desert in North Africa to raise money for charity, to get food for poor people. There are associations that go off and drive ski-doos, these amazing kind of snow motorbikes.
A lot of driving
in
involved.
Scandinavia, but there are also associations which take food to poor people, who help out in hospitals, who play rugby, including the ladies who play rugby. There's everything you can possibly imagine. And if you don't find the association that you want, guess what you do? You start it. You get a few friends together and you start an association. And we absolutely encourage our master's students to get involved in that right from the first day when they arrive.
So what are some of the associations that are really popular among the master's students of this program?
Well, it's hard to generalize because it's different from year to year. I mean, an association is a reflection of somebody's individual interests. So there would not be a typical profile. Some years we have several very sporty people and they want to join what the French call the BDS, which is the sports association, which has all the different sports inside it. We have other years where maybe we have 2 or 3 students particularly interested in theatre and they join the theatre association. So it will differ from year to year.
Anything particular to the marketing masters, or are there any particular business-oriented associations?
There's one association which is actually called, the French call it junior entreprise, which means junior company, and that's an association which offers consultancy services, which are remunerated to companies. So our master's students don't often join those because they don't have as long as students who are doing a 3 or 4 year degree, but that's a possibility as well. You have to get involved actively in consultancy.
All right, let's take this next one here.
How big is the cohort and where are your students from? This year we have 38. Usually we're turning between 35 and 45 to make it simple. It's different from year to year. We don't have a fixed limit. Although we're never going to have 100 students, that's for sure, because we don't want 100 students or even 80 students in a classroom. That gets in the way of learning. Where do the students come from? Literally from all over the world. We have quite a large number of Asian students because they're extremely interested in studying in Europe. But we have students from Latin America, from Eastern Europe, from Western Europe, of course, from France and from outside of France. So a very wide range.
And what is the proportion like do you have French students as well, or is it all international?
No, we have French students as well. Again, the proportion differs from year to year. Making it simple, I would say it's between 1/4 to 1/3 French students and 3/4 to 2/3 international students.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do they speak French whenever they're coming in, or are they required to speak French?
There is no requirement to speak French. Having said that, my recommendation to all the people I interview, and I do interviews face-to-face and by Skype, is that if you're coming to live in a country for a year or more, through pure self-interest, if not survival, it's quite nice to be able to go to the shop and say, could I have some bread, please? Or be able to get in a taxi and give the taxi driver instructions to get to the station or the airport. And I think it's also a matter of courtesy and respect that if you're living in someone else's country, you should be able to say please and thank you and hello and goodbye. So we offer French lessons. In fact, they are compulsory. Anyone who comes to us has to take French lessons as part of their curriculum. The French classes in the evening. It's only a few hours a week, but that at least means that everyone leaves at the end of the year with basic French, so that their experience of living in France has also included some basic integration skills.
Some cultural enrichment as well.
Yeah, and that's good in a CV as well, because if you can add even beginner French onto a CV, it's something that most people probably don't have, particularly if they come from the other side of the world.
It's true. All right, let's take this one here.
What's it like living in Rouen as a student? Is it hard to integrate an international student? Well, as I said before, Rouen is a lovely city. It's a small city. It's about 500,000 people. If you take the larger Rouen, as the French call it, the centre of the city is quite small. A very old city. It's a city which is most famous probably as being the home of Joan of Arc, if anyone can remember their history from all those years ago. So very, very old in the centre. A lot of churches. It's known as the city of 100 spires, church spires. So a lot of history, but it's also a very large student community. It's one of the largest in France, in fact, which might seem surprising for a reasonably small city. So it's a very easy place to live. Integrating as a foreign student is not a problem because there are many, many foreign students, both at Neoma, but also at the other universities and schools in Rouen itself.
And what's nightlife like? What's finding an apartment like? Is it? You mentioned that it's affordable to find housing. Is it easy to find housing?
Should I give you a diplomatic answer or a truthful answer?
We always want the truth here.
I think nightlife is too good, because if I look at the eyes of some of my students when they arrive after a night out, I'm joking a little bit, but typically in France what happens is there's one big night out a week, which is sometimes Wednesday and sometimes Thursday. Students go out, not only our students, but students from the School of Medicine, the School of Law. They all mix together, they go to bars, they go to clubs, usually organised by a student association, so that's a very active form of student life. But I think there's also a less formal and more relaxed nightlife where students are able to go and mix together and meet students from other faculties as well. So I have had no complaints from any of my students about the nightlife. It seems to work perfectly well.
Everybody's having a good time.
Everyone's having a good time, yeah.
All right, let's take this question here.
Do you have an organised alumni network I can access while I'm a student? We have one of the largest alumni networks in the whole of France, over 50,000 active alumni, organised internationally into local chapters, into local groups. So if after school, for instance, when you leave us, if you go for an internship to New York or to Shanghai, you can instantly make contact with the Alumni Association, their local office, their local group, and they will help you to integrate in that city if it's not somewhere you know. During the time you're a student, most of the time you're busy being a student, you don't need access to alumni, but when it starts to become time to look for an internship, then yes, it's very useful to make contact with past students from Marketing French Excellence and from other graduates from other parts of the school who've done different degrees.
Is there a specific chapter of the alumni network for the Marketing French Excellence?
It's not organised by program specifically. There are subsections of the Alumni Association for particular disciplines, of which marketing is one. So there is a marketing group. There is even a luxury group as well. So there's a marketing group and a luxury group, but there isn't a subset just for Marketing French Excellence, because we think it's better for our students to be mixing with students who've done other programs as well.
Certainly, but it's easy to target the kinds of alumni that you would want to be in touch with.
Very much so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's take this question here.
I'm from El Salvador and would like to work on my French while in this program. Does the school offer classes?
Well, you mentioned this.
So I've anticipated this, and in fact, yes, it's obligatory, compulsory, whichever, that makes it sound like a chore. It's not a chore, it's fun learning French. Somebody who speaks Spanish, I think, is going to find learning French relatively easy, so I'm told, by people who've done it. As far as I can remember, we've never had someone from El Salvador, so please get straight onto the website and start your application when we finish, because I'd love to see you at the end of a Skype line, and then we could talk a bit more about it. But there would be absolutely no problem for you to learn French.
Are you trying to collect all the nationalities in the world for this program?
Absolutely, yeah. Did you hear the story about the guy who loves Starbucks? This is true. And his objective is to drink Starbucks coffee in every Starbucks in the world.
That's dedication.
Yeah, I mean, compared to that, my objective of having a student from every country is quite modest, isn't it?
I think your quest is much more noble than drinking Starbucks in every country. All right, let's take the next question here.
What kinds of corporate partnerships do you have that benefit students? I'm not sure I quite understand that question. Can you help me with that, Jake?
Certainly. So does the program have any corporate partnerships that might give the students access to companies, internships?
Okay. Right. Well,
meetings?
The answer is yes and yes. First of all, we have a very large and very well-developed network of partnerships and cooperation with businesses in France and indeed in other parts of the world, but we're most interested in France here during the time that students are with us. So that means two things. It means that we have people coming in to teach on the program and all our programs. So we have professional people coming in and sharing the benefit of their experience. We also have a department specifically focused on helping students to find internships. We do that in two ways. We provide coaching, we provide leadership skills, we provide personal development skills, but we also have, let's call it almost like a job agency, where companies will send in their internship requirements to us, and we will post them on our website, and students can then apply direct. We also, each year, we have 2 or 3 job fairs where the companies will come to us, over 100 companies each time. They all take a stand, and they're there with anywhere between 2 and 7 or 8 people for a period of a day, sometimes 2 days, and they're there to offer internships and indeed permanent employment to the students when they finish their studies.
So what are some of these companies that you have partnerships with?
Just about everybody you can imagine. We have all the big groups, including, for instance, the accountancy groups. We have the fashion groups. We have, not every one of them, of course, but representatives of all of the industries. We have what I would call the FMCG, fast-moving consumer groups. So we have people like Unilever or Procter & Gamble coming, just about everyone you can imagine. But we also have small companies. And I don't know if this is an appropriate time to say it, but a lot of students are obsessed with the idea of working for a multinational corporation. Why not? But I also say to all my students, don't neglect to look at the opportunities with smaller and medium-sized companies, either locally or internationally, because many of these companies have wonderful opportunities, and sometimes they have almost fast-track career paths available, because smaller companies tend to be often a little bit more agile. Very often you're talking directly to the boss or the entrepreneur who's established the organization. So I encourage all my students to look at the biggest, the multinational, the people who are global, but also the smaller, the local, or the international, but the international on an entrepreneurial basis.
So don't limit your scope. I also wanted to ask, during these job fairs, are the companies that are coming, are they offering international opportunities as well, or are they only recruiting for within Europe and within France?
The people who come specifically to the school are most interested in the first instance in recruiting from France. But of course, a big company has a departmental structure. So the people who are coming from the French office have contacts and names of people who are working in El Salvador or people who are working in the United States of America or Scotland. And they can usually help to direct the student towards the right port of call to go and get information that's required.
Very good. Let's take this question here.
Do you have student housing available? Do they mean me specifically?
Yes,
me
you specifically. Yeah. Are you
well, I
housing
only have
students?
one spare bedroom, so it's not going to go very far. More seriously, will you help us to find accommodation? I imagine it's difficult as a foreigner. It's absolutely not difficult as a foreigner. In Rouen, we have plenty of accommodation, and we have an office, a department, in fact, absolutely specifically tailored to help students, not just to help, because we always succeed, to make sure that every student has accommodation before they arrive in the country. So nobody turns up with bags and nowhere to stay on the first night. Everyone has accommodation, and there is choice, a lot of choice available, and we offer choice in terms of price, in terms of locality, because the business school, Neoma Business School, is on the edge of Rouen. It's up on the heights. It's only 10 minutes in a bus from the centre of town, but some students prefer to live in student accommodation right next to the school, because it makes it easier to get up in the morning and get to class on time, whereas some students prefer to be right in the centre of town, because then they're closer to shopping facilities or to the train station if they want to take regular trips to Paris or wherever. So students are absolutely not only free, but encouraged to tell us specifically what they want and what their budget is, and we will find them accommodation which is appropriate for the resources that they have available and for their choice.
And so what is that process? They tell you what they want. Does the department send photos back? The student says yes. You sign your papers. Everything is done before you even arrive.
Everything's done before you arrive, yeah. It's a dialogue. It's a dialogue finding out what people want and then getting as close as we can to the requirements. Obviously, if someone comes with unrealistic requirements saying, I want an apartment for 10 euros a month, we don't have those. But within the bounds of everything that's reasonable, we are usually able to satisfy everybody's requirements.
And does the school give them the keys, or do they pick up the keys directly from?
We are not the owner. We don't own or directly manage any of the accommodation ourselves. In many countries it's the case where universities or schools actually own and manage their own accommodation. It doesn't typically work like that in France. So the accommodation is run by independent organizations who are specialized in this. Now I'm talking here about student accommodation. It's also possible to stay in private accommodation, either to rent an apartment privately or just to rent a room from a family. I think renting a room in a French family is great for someone who wants to learn French. Our friend from El Salvador wants to learn French. There is no better way than to actually be living with a French family and speaking French every night at dinner or on the way out in the morning for someone who wants to do that. Renting a private apartment is sometimes slightly trickier for someone who comes from another country, because of course the owner is going to want guarantees. And that's why it's often easier logistically for someone to take a student accommodation rather than to actually privately rent an apartment.
Good advice. Let's take this question here.
Are there career services available when we start this program? They're not only available when you start the program, they are available all the way through the program. We actually have a 30-hour module integrated into the program, which is focused specifically on developing leadership skills, on personal development skills, on career management skills. I mean, me managing my own career, helping me to be realistic about what I want to do, what I can do, and where I should be looking for opportunities. And that's a department which exists only to do this. And every student in our school, and we have over 8,000 students now across the whole of Neoma. We're large, and we're only a business school. We don't do anything else except business. We're not a university with faculties of other disciplines. So we have 8,000 plus business students, and every business student now has not only access, but mandatorily will go through at some stage this training.
All right, we're going to take another break from the face-to-face. It's
Okay.
time for the expert question. All right, here's your question right here, if you'll read this for me.
What makes Neoma an expert in French excellence? And in your opinion, what are some of the main points that set marketing à la française apart? Wow. So I'll read it just again to make sure that I understand it, but also to make sure everyone's heard it. What makes Neoma an expert in French excellence? And in your opinion, my opinion, what are some of the main points that set marketing à la française apart? So let's break it down into two parts. What makes us an expert in French excellence? First of all, we're a French school. We're based in France. Now, the program is run by a Scotsman and an American. That might seem strange. But you know, often what you need in life is you need someone objective to tell you what you're really good at. Almost all of us, we've had the experience, even if we're young, of living in our own country, and probably our curiosity runs out too early. So we don't even take the time to go off and explore the things that are on our doorstep. So one of the advantages of having a program on French excellence run by two non-French gentlemen is that we are so curious ourselves, Bill and myself, about exploring and understanding the things, the differences that makes France different in the way that it markets and it does its marketing, that we're continually striving to push the boundaries for. And an example of that is Bill, of course, who's arrived from the States 2 years ago. He's already starting a module in millennium marketing with a very French flavor to it. And then the second question is, what are some of the main points that set marketing à la française apart? Well, marketing itself is let's call it a generic discipline. So the basic rules of marketing, and if I had 3 hours, Jake, I could talk endlessly about why marketing is great, but I'm not going to do it. You know, marketing is the business of curiosity. It's the business of finding out what people really want and need in their lives to make them happy and satisfied, and then developing it and providing it to them at a price they can afford to pay. So those rules never change, whether you're in France or China or the States. What makes France different? Well, France has carved itself out a niche in several different disciplines or several different domains, such as luxury, but also in distribution, in tourism. I don't know if you're aware of this, France is the #1 most visited country in the world. Extraordinary, but true. So France is pretty good at tourism. And it's developed, over the years, it's developed a tourism industry, not by accident. It's set out to do this. And it's set out its stall on the basis that when people come to France, they have a good time. Because you don't come and visit a place if you don't believe you're going to have a good time, whatever that may mean to you. So I hope that answers the expert question.
Well, if you had 3 more hours, you could go on. But
I'd love to, but
we got to take the next
I think you'd have to throw me out, wouldn't you?
Yes. All right, here we go. What's this one?
How does curriculum work on our soft skills? I see this as a buzzword in a lot of job postings. I'd be very interested to know whether the person who sent it in sees buzzword as a positive or a negative. It sounds a bit like it's a negative, doesn't it? What does soft skills mean? Well, guess what? We've actually invented a word at Neoma Business School for soft skills. We have our own word, which we've even registered. And that word is humanship. Now, humanship doesn't exist in the Oxford Dictionary or any other dictionary, but the idea of humanship is that we believe, and more companies believe and have proved to themselves, that actually the key to being a good manager or being a good employee or being a good colleague is somebody who is able to work with and to understand other human beings, and somebody who is prepared to bring some empathy to their job. Whether that job is working with external customers or external suppliers, or it's working with colleagues in-house. If you haven't got the basic skills of interpersonal relationships, if you don't know how to handle yourself in different situations, either with your boss or members in your team, it gets in the way of being efficient. It also gets in the way of being contented. And I have a very strong belief, after many, many, many years, that happy people, it sounds a bit trite or banal, but it's not supposed to be, but people who are happy actually work better in their job. And I actually stood up last weekend in a theatre in the centre of Paris, just about a kilometre from here, because we had our graduation ceremony with our last year's students. And I got up and I said, I've got 3 bits of advice for you. It's dead easy. What you need to do is you need to aim for a situation where every Monday morning you get up and you say, I'm going to work in a place that I really like working in. I'm going to work with people that I really like working with. And I'm going to do a job that I really enjoy doing. Because if you can tick those 3 boxes, you've cracked it. And money doesn't even matter very much, because you'll be doing your job so well, because you're happy, that somebody will pay you at least enough to be comfortable, and probably a bit more than enough. You'll be doing fine, and you'll be promoted, and you'll get more responsibility. But the first boxes to tick are the human boxes, because if you're going to work every Monday, and you don't like what you do, and you're doing a job that you don't really believe is useful or necessary, and you're working with people where there's a lot of infighting, you're just not going to be good. You're not going to be good at your job.
That is a very wise and positive outlook. So let's take this next one. It is the last one before we have to wrap up.
Could you give me some examples of research topics, please? Is this done in conjunction with an internship? That's a great question to finish with. And it's actually the perfect time to have it. So, at the end of the studies, and the study period runs from September until mid-May, at the end of that period, students then go out and do their internship. And during that period, we actually start earlier. We start during the second term, excuse me, with methodology classes. But during the internship period, students will be working on their dissertation. Sometimes we call it a professional thesis. Sometimes the French call it a memoir. I like the word dissertation. And that dissertation is ideally linked to the internship. Why? Because if it's linked to the internship, it has more meaning for most students, because the employer who is providing the internship will be very happy to have a student who's working on a dissertation, which by and large means a kind of consultancy project. So the employer gets free consulting, free advice, maybe free ideas. The student has access to data, maybe to customers, to colleagues that they wouldn't otherwise have had. And there's meaning to it, which there isn't if it's a purely esoteric subject. If a student is interested in doing a PhD, and occasionally we have that, we have one student this year who's thinking of doing a PhD afterwards, then it's quite possible to do what I would call a purely theoretical dissertation as well. But it's not in any sense the majority. Most students are doing a practical dissertation, in which case I would certainly recommend that it's done in conjunction with the internship.
Excellent. All right, we're going to have to wrap up very quickly, so you get the final word. What would you like to leave us with?
Well, all I can tell you is I'm not going to tell you how old I am, because it would scare you to death, but I've been doing marketing for such a long time, and I wanted to do marketing before I started doing it. I enjoyed it all the time I was doing it as a practitioner, because I used to work in the fashion industry. I love doing it as a teacher, and I would recommend it to anybody as a career. So come and do marketing with Neoma.
Well, thanks for joining us, Ewan.
Thanks.
And thank you for watching. We'll see you again very soon, right here on Campus Channel.